Stephon Castle entered the NBA as a winner. He was a starter not only on a national title team, but one of the greatest college basketball teams I've ever seen. He was praised for his defense and versatile upside on offense. He went 4th overall in the 2024 draft to the Spurs for that reason. However, Castle has been polarizing in his rookie season. Some believe he's a future star, while others are more skeptical of what he could be. How good can Stephon Castle be? That's what I want to answer in this video. But before we go any further, if you're new like basketball, I'd really appreciate if you would like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I'm notified whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball, and if you enjoy basketball, I really think you're going to enjoy my content. And doing all those things are the best way to let YouTube, but more importantly, myself, know that you enjoy the content so I can make more of it in the future. Also, check out the first episode of the Terranova Basketball Study podcast. I'm going to be uploading that every Sunday and uploading the clips from those podcasts throughout the week. But let's talk about Stephon Castle. And I think a good place to start is the numbers he's putting up. He's averaging 14 points per game, 3.3 rebounds per game, and 3.6 assists per game on 42.8, 28.7, 72.5 splits, and a 52.1 shooting percentage. Those are good numbers for a rookie, looking at the points, rebounds, and assists, especially for somebody that is a guard wing type of player. The efficiency definitely needs work. He's not an efficient offensive player right now. However, that is common for rookies to struggle with, especially one and done aged rookies. And I do think looking at what Castle is as a player and the upside he has goes beyond just looking at the box score numbers, because he has really good physical tools. 6'6", 215 pounds, 6'9" wingspan. That's an ideal frame for a guard wing hybrid. He has great vertical explosion. You see it in his dunks. You saw it in the dunk contest where he actually was really good and probably would have won if Mac McClung wasn't there. And that's not just me saying that because McClung won. That's just also how good Castle was in that dunk contest. He has good strength and physicality, and I think there's a bit more room to get stronger there. He has a solid first step, solid quickness, and speed. He's not a super elite athlete, but I wouldn't say he's a bad one either. There are areas of his game he utilizes his athleticism in a positive way, and he meets a lot of the thresholds to survive in the NBA and exceeds that in other areas as well. And I think a good place to start with how he uses his tools to his advantage is his ability to draw fouls. He averages 3.9 free throw attempts per game. That puts him in the 87th percentile, and that's also the best among rookies. The only rookie in the league right now that's in the 80th or better percentile in fouls drawn. Extend that to second-year players, and he is 3rd in free throw attempts, behind only Keontae George and Victor Wembanyama, and he would still be top 10 in free throw attempts if you were to extend that even further to 3rd-year players. He has shown a ton of promise as a foul drawer. He uses his strength and physicality on drives to his advantage. He knows how to extend his arm to get defenders to react. He doesn't shy away from contact. He plays through contact more times than not, and I think that's important. If you've watched videos in the past about Scoot Henderson that I've made, a big talking point for me was the fact that he went in on drives looking to get the foul. And while Castle does that as well, there are way more times I've noticed with Castle in his rookie year compared to Scoot in his rookie year where he's just going to drive to get a bucket and he draws the foul as a result of it. And I think overall he's further along in terms of drawing fouls for most his age at his position. Now, I don't see this elite Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Harden in his prime level foul drawer, but I do see a guy that could be a 5 free throw attempt per game player, which, considering the role he is projected to have long term, is really valuable. And I think where the foul drawing comes from is the fact that he's also pretty good at the rim. 61.2% on 4.9 attempts per game at the rim. That's 89th percentile in rim volume, 2nd highest rim volume among rookies, and he's more efficient at the rim than bigs like Yves Missi, Alex Sarr, and Donovan Clingan. He moves well without the basketball as a roll-man, cutter, and closeout threat. On the ball, he has a functional handle and functional athleticism. He uses his strength to his advantage. He has promise in terms of his craft, That's highlighted by the decel move. He's made a staple of his game. That's really valuable to have when you aren't the quickest, you aren't the strongest yet, even if I think he can get stronger. Maybe you're not the fastest. The ability to start and stop on a dime, that can be valuable because that can make up for the fact you aren't the best natural space creator. Now, again, I don't see this super elite rim presser player in his future. Like, he's not SGA, who's an all-time great rim presser threat. But I do think I see a player that can consistently attack the rim and be very effective. And when you combine that with the fact that I do like what I see from him as a playmaker, you do paint a picture of someone that can be really impactful on offense because he has good vision, he makes good reads. I like his feel for the game as a passer for the most part. Does make the occasional bad pass, but that's common for a rookie. He can handle some pick and roll reps. I wouldn't say he's going to be this high-end primary pick and roll playmaker in his career, but I do think he's capable of doing it in a more limited role. He makes really good passes in transition, and my favorite thing about him as a passer is the fact that he can remain in control in those chaos scramble situations of offensive rebounds. Maybe the ball gets batted around a few times. He can make the play in that regard, and I think that's very valuable. And the biggest selling point, I believe, is defense. He is somebody that has ideal size, strength, and athleticism, high motor, makes those hustle plays that don't show up in the box score, and somebody that likely defends wings long term and a decent amount of guards. I think he might struggle against the freak athletes like Amen Thompson, John Morant, but he has the strength to somewhat compensate for the quickness and burst disadvantage against players like that. He can make plays on and off the ball. I think that's the most telling sign for if someone's going to be a good defender or not. In fact, I would say off-ball defense is a more telling indicator than on-ball defense in terms of defensive upside. He can force tough shots. He can polish up his technique a bit, but that's common for rookies. I think he has solid discipline in terms of fouls for his age, and that will only get better as he gets more game reps and more experience. Long term, I see a guy that defends 1 through 3s for the most part, uses strength and physicality to his advantage, and can hold his own on switches and make plays off the ball. An all-defense upside guy that I would say best case scenario is in a similar mold to Jrue Holiday in that regard, and I don't say that lightly. Jrue Holiday is one of the best defensive players of his generation, but for all the good that Castle brings to the table, and I think make him somebody that's going to be a good player for a long time, there are things I look at and wonder if there are limitations for how good he can be. One of the biggest ones that stands out the most is his three-point shooting. He's not a good three-point shooter. 28.7% on 4 attempts per game. And this was a concern entering the league. This was something that really held him back from being the number 1 pick. If he was a good shooter, he would have been the number 1 pick without question in that class. But I do see some promise in his rookie season, even if the numbers are pretty abysmal from 3. He's already a much more confident shooter as a rookie compared to his freshman year at UConn. He's taking shots he didn't take in college. He's taking step backs. He's taking pull-ups. He's shooting off screens. He's shooting early in the shot clock. He's taking advantage of when they go under the screen sometimes. And that's a positive indicator for his long-term outlook as a shooter. Having confidence is the foundation for any type of shooting growth. And even if I don't think that Castle will ever be a good shooter, let alone all-time elite one, I do think he has shown the confidence that suggests with more reps, more freedom this year, and work in the offseason, he can grow into a solid shooter. Somebody that you can't leave open all the time and leave on this island, even if you prefer him to shoot, meeting that baseline that I believe a lot of guards and wings need to reach in order to be a starter on a contender at his position. Only time will tell, obviously. It's a major swing factor in his game, and it is one of the big reasons why I'm a bit skeptical of him reaching super high-end ceiling outcomes in his career. But I do think there is room for growth, but you need to be patient with it, and you need to set realistic goals for what he could be as a shooter. The biggest concern for me, though, is the creation ability, or lack thereof. He has a solid handle. I never want him to think he has a terrible handle and he can't dribble the basketball, but it can be loose at times, and it's hard to project a handle improvement to the level where he could be this great scorer down the line. It's really unrealistic to believe he can make that kind of development. He doesn't create the most separation, and while he has shown the potential to compensate for that with his strength, I don't think he quite has the physical and athletic intangibles to compensate for maybe a looser handle or maybe not creating the most space. I don't think this limits him in terms of can he be a good player, because I think he does enough off the ball. I think there's enough promise as a connector and rim scorer as well as defender to believe he will be a good player. However, I do think it limits him in the sense of how great can he be. So those are my thoughts on Stephon Castle after watching a decent amount of his games. There are things I really like about his game, but there are also things I'm very skeptical of. And I know this is going to be a very obscure reference to make, but I view Stephon Castle the same way I view Ruby as a series. It's something that I don't think is as bad as some people make it out to be, but I also don't think it's as great as others make it out to be either, but I enjoy it nonetheless. And I feel the same way about Castle. I don't think he's as bad as some people think he is. I think there's enough sustainable traits and skills in his game that will make him a guy that lasts in the league for a very long time. But I also don't see the star ceiling or the perennial all-star level guy that some people think he could be. He's a player that does a lot of things very well. He's a really good connecting passer. He's a high field player. He's a great defensive player with a ton of upside. He's somebody that really is good at attacking the rim and drawing fouls, but he's also somebody that isn't the creator I think is necessary to be a perennial all-star. But regardless, I really do see an impact player on a contender when I watch Stephon Castle. I see somebody that at the very least can be in your rotation and be impactful. I think realistically, looking at a guy like a Jalen Suggs or a Christian Brown, who are elite defensive players that can be very productive on offense at times, but aren't quite somebody look and say, that's your number 2 option. I think that's what Castle's going to be. I think best case scenario, we're looking at like a Drew Holiday or Derek White type of guy where they're capable of putting up these monster numbers, but you don't want to rely on it. And I think that's like the highest end outcome for him. But regardless, I do think Castle's going to be a good player for a long time in the NBA, even if it isn't quite what some people believe it's going to be. But only time will tell. I could be very wrong about this, and I can't wait to see how he develops over the next few years. But that is the end of this video. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, haven't already, like, subscribe, hit notification bell, notified whenever I release a video. If you enjoy basketball, I really think you're going to enjoy my content, and doing all those things are the best way to help YouTube, but more importantly, myself know that you enjoy the content, so I can make more of it in the future. Again, check out the Basketball Study Podcast, episode 1. Link to that in the description below and pinned comment. Let me know what you think about Stephon Castle in the comment section below. But with that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.